A warm Monday morning in late May, the sort of morning that lifts the smell of wet grass and reminds college towns that summer is coming. A young woman fills a bucket, the water rushing loud in the quiet. She sets out her rags and a spray bottle, props a flip-flop against a lamppost with her toes, and reaches for the glass. Lunch is on the calendar. Her sister is inside making sandwiches. A clock ticks past the hour, then past the next. The water stills. The bucket sits where it was left. The flip-flops are on the ground, the plastic torn and packed with mud, as if someone dragged their owner out of them while she tried to stay put. Welcome to Fractured Files. Today's case begins with a short walk to a lamp. Standard and an ordinary chore. It becomes a hunt that spans states, a community that refuses to let a name fade, and a confession pulled from a man who treated the truth like currency. This is the disappearance and murder of 19-year-old Brooke Wilberger. Brooke grew up in Oregon in a large, close family. She was the fifth of 6 children, the kind of middle place that teaches a person to listen and speak, to hold a sibling's hand and keep pace with older kids. She excelled in school and played hard when the bell rang, falling in love with basketball, snowboarding, and running. When she was 16, she started dating Justin, a boy she had known most of her life. Both came up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Faith shaped their time and plans. When Justin left on a 2-year mission, Brooke went to Utah and enrolled at Brigham Young University. Her choice wasn't only about distance or faith. When she was little, her speech came late. Words arrived around age 4. That struggle formed her, not by limiting her, but by making her brave. BYU's speech pathology program stood out as a place where she could turn a past challenge into a vocation. She wanted to help children who felt locked inside their mouths, to nudge confidence into voices that needed a way out. Those who knew her say she was soft-spoken, but she never stepped back when something felt wrong. She had outgrown the small orbit of home and was ready for the bigger ring of campus life. Her freshman year went well. Like a lot of students, Brooke came home for the summer. She needed money to carry her through the months ahead and wanted work that threaded into family time. Her sister Stephanie managed Oak Park Apartments in Corvallis with her husband. It was a perfect fit. Brooke could stay with them for stretches, knock out shifts, and head back to her parents' place between work and social plans. The arrangement put her near Oregon State University, 30 miles from home, and gave Stephanie the pleasure of those small, ordinary sister moments that disappear once people leave the nest. Monday, May 24th, 2004. Corvallis settled into a work week rhythm. At about 10 a.m., Stephanie glanced out the window and saw Brooke filling a bucket to clean exterior lights around the buildings. They'd meet for lunch later. Noon slid by, 1 o'clock came and went. Stephanie, busy with food and kids, checked the time and joked to her children that it was time to launch a search party for Aunt Brooke. She stepped outside and started a casual loop, expecting to find her sister talking with a resident or finishing a task. Then she saw the bucket, the cleaning supplies, the flip-flops at the base of a lamp. The straps were ripped, the soles muddy. It looked like someone had yanked Brooke out of them while she dug in her heels. She called her husband. They ran the corridors, checked breezeways, called her phone. Nothing. Brooke's purse, wallet, and phone were inside her locked car. Just after 3 p.m., the family dialed 911. Police didn't treat this like a routine adult disappearance. Lieutenant Ron Noble said the quiet part out loud. In most adult cases, officers can wait a day to see if someone returns. Here, that would not do. The scene said it plainly. A young woman had started a task and left everything mid-motion. She had not decided to skip lunch. She had not taken a drive without her keys. Witnesses had heard a scream around 10:30 a.m., but no one saw the source. Officers spread through the complex, knocking on doors, cataloging what was missing and what wasn't. Word moved faster than official statements. Brooke's name rolled through phone trees and church lists, across campus and into the wider community. Investigators split the work. One group canvassed the apartments, another pulled sex offender registries. That number, roughly 2,000 in the region, gave a sense of scale. It was a lot of ground to cover quickly. There were obvious boxes to check. Detectives spoke to Justin, though he was in Venezuela on his mission, far from Oregon. His whereabouts were easy to verify. He was ruled out almost as soon as his name came up. Still, fear doesn't consult logic. Captain Jonathan Sassaman described the pressure. The city wanted answers. People wanted to know if they were safe, if their daughters were safe, if any woman walking alone might be next. Brooke's case became one of the most publicized in the state's history. Hundreds joined searches. The FBI stepped in. Tips poured in from across Oregon and beyond. Amid the flood, a name floated to the top. Kim. He was 30, living 80 miles away with his parents, and deeply reclusive. He hit the radar because of an escalating pattern of burglaries at college dorms. He stole women's underwear. Thousands of pairs turned up in a home search, an inventory so large it became a grotesque statistic. One of the dorms he hit lay near Oak Park Apartments. The theory was a familiar one. Behaviors escalate. The line between fetish-driven burglary and physical violence doesn't always hold. Before dawn, almost a week after Brooke vanished, police raided Kim's home. What they found on his computer did not comfort anyone. Tens of thousands of sexual images and videos, many violent. A document written after Brooke disappeared, read like a how-to on committing a sexually motivated crime and escaping detection. What clothes to wear, items to bring. Even with that document on the screen, nothing linked him to Brooke. Digital time stamps and receipts placed him at home or shopping with his father during the window when she was taken. He was charged for the crimes that could be proven and would later serve 7 years for burglary and related counts. His parents sued for the way the raid unfolded, arguing that officers used excessive force. The suit settled for just over $300,000. The case that mattered most to Corvallis remained unsolved. Days became weeks, then nearly a month. Detectives chased a particular vehicle that kept surfacing. Reports clustered around a dark green minivan, possibly a 1997 model. A man named Brian had called 911 to report the same vehicle speeding. A university employee, Bob, had seen a green van with Minnesota plates in a campus lot and watched the driver speak to a female student who later reported feeling threatened. Another student said a similar van pulled up short in front of her. The driver asked for directions, stepped out, and opened a back door. She hurried away. The pattern made sense in the abstract. In practice, detectives still needed a plate, a driver, and a reason to tie anyone to Brooke. 6 months passed. Search parties dwindled because people have jobs and children and obligations. The story remained in the news, but the volume dropped. In late November, the phone rang in a different state with facts that were hard to ignore. Albuquerque, New Mexico. A mother named Dara drove with her daughters when they saw a young woman running across a main road, naked, hysterical, trying to wrench open a restaurant door. Dara pulled over and got her into the car. The woman was a 22-year-old exchange student from Russia. Between sobs, she explained. A tall, broad, white male with a shaved head and a beard had grabbed her from behind, pressed a knife to her throat, dragged her into a car, sexually assaulted her, and tied her with her own shoelaces. He parked in an apartment complex, left her bound in the car, and walked toward a unit. She broke free and ran. Dara relayed what she could to 911. The car stood out, a 2-door red vehicle with a red floral interior and a stuffed toy near the window. police traced the description to a name: Joel Patrick Courtney. He lived nearby with his family, a married father of 3 who carried a long and dark history. Officers found him only a few blocks from the scene, sitting in his car with a crack pipe and a knife. Joel's background stretched coast to coast. He was a convicted sex offender with a record that began in youth. His sister Dana remembered a bright child, a genius-level IQ, and a sudden left turn into drugs at 11. By his teens, he had embraced darker obsessions and violence. He did not finish high school. He bounced in and out of juvenile detention. By 18, he had already been accused of sexual assault. Dana described nights he entered her room, choked her, tried to rape her. For a time, adulthood looked like it might steady him. At 23, he met Rosie, married, and had children. Even Dana found a way to forgive enough to remain a sister. Then he slid again. He used crack cocaine, drank hard, and collected DUIs. In 1991, he served time for sexual assault and other crimes. He moved often. Alaska, Florida, New Mexico, Oregon. He left trouble in his wake. Albuquerque charged him for the attack on the exchange student. As detectives there sifted his life, one investigator kept thinking of a case that had dominated the news in another state. A young woman missing from Corvallis. A green van reported near a campus. A broad-shouldered man who used a knife to control victims. The detective called Oregon. Had they heard of Joel? The answer turned gravity-heavy. On the day Brooke disappeared, Joel had been in that area with his family. The circle closed tighter when Joel's sister heard from Rosie about his arrest. Dana hung up, looked at her husband, and asked the question she had been avoiding. Could he be involved with Brooke's disappearance? She didn't want to say it out loud. Her gut said he knew. Reporters in Oregon broke the news that police believed Brooke had been murdered and that the man sitting in a New Mexico jail could be responsible. Without a body, that statement carried weight that shook the community. Detectives gathered evidence for months. The green minivan Joel had driven in Oregon was located and seized. Forensics technicians stripped it, swabbed the interior, and tested anything that could hold a cell. In the spring of 2005, the results came back. Brooke's DNA was inside. Blonde hairs consistent with Brooke's were in a hairband found in one of Joel's bags. The DNA pointed to sexual assault. The case moved from suspicion to charge. A Benton County grand jury indicted Joel Patrick Courtney on 19 counts. 14 counts of aggravated murder under alternative theories. 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping in the first degree. 1 count each of first-degree rape, first-degree sexual abuse, and first-degree sodomy. Under Oregon law, aggravated murder carried the possibility of death. Because Joel also faced prosecution in New Mexico, extradition would take time. Oregon would have to wait. The window between charge and trial filled with the noise peculiar to defendants who want attention and delay. In New Mexico, Joel ultimately pleaded guilty to kidnapping and raping the exchange student. He received an 18-year sentence. In court, he mocked proceedings, told the judge he had no respect for the court, said he would spit at him if he were close enough. That bravado did not change the math. He would serve time there first. Oregon watched and prepared. In 2007, Joel tried to declare himself incompetent to stand trial for Brooke's murder. The court ruled him fit. Brooke's mother, Cammie, heard the decision while driving and did a quick dance in the car, a little human movement in a process that had trapped the family between grief and procedure. She said she had felt the edge of a black hole, the thought that a technical ruling could derail the chance to hear the truth in open court. By 2009, 5 years had passed since Brooke vanished. Joel's Oregon trial was set for early 2010. Prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. With that declaration public, another set of negotiations began. They wanted the same thing the Wilberger family wanted. They wanted Brooke back. For months, Joel refused to deal. He played for time, used his knowledge of her burial place as leverage. He took beatings from inmates who knew what he had done. He failed to get anxiety medication. He decided he wanted out of the jail that held him. That want formed a bargain. Joel said he would plead guilty in Oregon if two conditions were met. He would serve the remainder of his 18-year New Mexico sentence in that state near his family before moving to Oregon custody. And Oregon would remove death from the table. The goal was clear. He would give up the location of Brooke's remains and put an end to the search that had defined a town's heart for half a decade. The agreement was made. Joel changed his plea. He told investigators where to find Brooke. Off an abandoned road about 12 miles west of the abduction site, searchers found a clandestine burial. He had hidden her beneath a fallen tree on private property. Dental records confirmed the identification. Cammy confirmed it in a small human way, too. The silver watch she had given her daughter for Christmas was still on her. That detail landed harder than the lab report. Oregon's Attorney General praised the local prosecutor for threading a difficult path under public scrutiny. The outcome mattered. A life sentence without parole. The return of a daughter's remains. A family with a place to grieve. In court, Joel finally described what he had done. He said he spent that day prowling for a victim. He tried to abduct 2 university students before Brooke. Those women had already told police about a green van and a man who frightened them. He drove laps until he saw Brooke working alone. He pretended to be a delivery driver. When she drew near the van, he took out a knife, forced her inside, bound her with tape, and assaulted her. He drove her into the woods and kept her alive through the night. In the morning, he bludgeoned her to death. He said he had not planned to kill her until he realized how hard she fought. He hid her body in a way that made discovery unlikely without his words. Residents near where she was found spoke to cameras and each other about the shock of proximity. An abandoned road that people had walked during searches. A store 3 miles away where locals felt safe. They had gone by the place more than once. Sometimes, if something is hidden with intent, people can walk right past it and never know. Joel never apologized. He never looked at the Wilberger family and offered anything like remorse. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dana, his sister, issued a statement that made clear how a family separates love from truth. They had prayed from the first day that if Joel was responsible, the truth would come out and Brooke would be found. When she learned that her body had been recovered, she wept. The emotions were bitter and grateful at once. The FBI believes Joel may be responsible for other attacks and possibly murders in Oregon. 3 additional victims who fit the violent pattern. A prosecutor said only one other person in her career had made the hair on her neck stand up the same way. That person was Richard Ramirez. Corvallis carried the case like a shared weight. Volunteers who had spent hours walking fields and drainage ditches cried when the news broke. The story remained a defining moment. Something people spoke about at church and in line at the grocery store, at the university, and in living rooms. Cammy thanked the strangers who had walked beside her family. She said she didn't believe in closure as an ending. She believed in a beginning that honored what they had been shown by their community. Love. Her words were simple and steady. People could move forward and do good things, love others, and act the way Brooke would have acted. Stephanie, who found the torn flip-flops and the bucket of water, said she would be 80 someday, with a long life to look back on, and she still wouldn't be okay with what happened to her sister. Time doesn't sand every edge. She replays the morning in a loop, testing small changes, wondering if any detail could have altered the end. Grief is an iceberg. The public sees the part above the surface and thinks it looks devastating. The family knows the mass below, the part that scrapes the ocean floor and keeps moving. Brooke went from washing a streetlight to fighting for her life in minutes. She was 19, devout, stubborn in the best way. She had plans that included children she hadn't met yet and patients she would someday help. This is Fractured Files. If this story mattered to you, like the video, subscribe and share it so more people hear Brooke's name and understand the work it took to bring her home. New deep dives are coming soon. Stay safe and stay watchful.